Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about a problem that we have been really discussing over the past couple of years of what has happened to true masculinity and what is happening to modern men nowadays and why are they so lost? Why are young men nowadays so lost and really directionless? And it's a problem that me and Andrew talk about very occasionally with friends, with different people in our lives. And we're just going to try our best to go through all of the questions today, give our opinions, give our thoughts, and actually give those who are watching later on or live a guide on how to gain clarity, gain direction, gain purpose, start to understand yourself more, start to feel that energy inside that everybody has. So that's the outcome. How you feeling, Andrew?
Feel good, man. How are you feeling?
I feel good as well.
It's a beautiful Friday. I think it's a exciting day, and excited to be hanging out with you guys. And I like these shows because they give us an opportunity. While there's some we prep and go into a topic and teach from topics and days like this. It's just us discussing as we would. It's just us sharing ideas and thought processes. And I think that transformation starts with communication. And for a world to have the growth that it needs, for us to make the impact it needs, it starts with this, with us having conversation and identifying challenges as we see them and what's the best solutions and how can you, me, us, how can we make shifts that transform the culture?
So this is a discussion with you guys as well and answering the question together. We, of course, have a lot of young men that come to us for guidance, and it's always something we're researching, right? I grew up with both my parents and my sister, and I didn't have a very masculine father in my life that taught me how to have direction in my life, how to have purpose. It was myself having to kind of go through the trenches in the school of hard knocks, get knocked down so many times, go through multiple relationships to then learn that, hey, you have to take it upon yourself if you don't have a masculine role model. And of course, that has led me to build business, to take control of my life, meeting Andrew, us becoming good brothers, good friends, and building a lot of great things together. Where now we are role models for a lot of young men on social media, but also in a lot of our communities. So those of you guys who are here, ask questions and bring up thoughts, bring up studies. We'll pull it up here and just start to discuss multiple things. But Andrew, what is your thesis on why modern men are so lost and why, masculinity has been so tainted over the past couple of years?
The first thought that comes to my mind is to give the 30-second background of where my perspective comes from.
Okay.
Being raised by a baby boomer, my grandpa went through the Great Depression, and at times they didn't know where they was going to get their food from. My grandpa was born in 1914. And so understanding that was the generational thought processes. And then my dad comes along, a baby boomer, born in 1951. And he was always someone, lived in the country and read a lot, reads a lot. He still does. And what he does is he reads a lot and develops ideas. And then, of course, as kids, he was consistently empowering and encouraging us as young men. I'm the last of six, to be men of integrity, to make good choices. And he would show us how something was done and then give us that liberty to go make our own choices. We started making money at 12, going to work with dad in our off days and in the summertime and off days of school. And so coming from that background and that perspective, I would constantly hear him talk about how that the movies or the movie industry, the TV industry, the what social media of that day was constantly pushing that the father figure and men were stupid and dumb. And so his perspective, this is, years ago, was always that there was a movement to destroy the home and the family. Because if a home and a family is destroyed, and of course, dad coming from being a pastor, for many years of his life. If the home and the family is destroyed, it weakens the church. If the churches are destroyed and the home and the families are destroyed, it weakens the country. And now here we are years later with, I think, 1 out of 4, I was just looking it up on ChatGPT, 1 out of 4 children in the U.S. grow up in households without a father figure. That's crazy. Walk down the street, see 4 kids, 1 out of 4 are raised up without a father figure. And that's not to say the other 3/4, how many of those are, quote, good father figures?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many of those dads have trauma and issues they've never dealt with, so they're passing that curse on to their kids. So coming from that background and that history, for me, it starts with, I believe there was a movement to destroy the home many years ago.
I think it's seen over the past however many years as such a culture shift, and it's like a little pendulum swing where maybe it wasn't to completely destroy the country, maybe it was, but then you're starting to see the pendulum swing all the way of what happens when a man is, lack of a better word, demasculated, when he becomes so soft, when he no longer has purpose, when he doesn't drive the decisions in his life or his family's life. And then you start to see so many bad things happening all throughout where those men start to have children, but then the fathers don't lead that child. Yeah. And that child is then led by culture. And then it's like, wow, what a great play for whoever thought of that, of like, hey, let's let culture lead all of the men. Yeah. Right? Bring him towards the worst things that hold them back. Let's put lust in their lives. And let's make a crazy site that is so addictive that gets everyone addicted to it. Yeah. And then let's put social media, make it so addicting that they're controlled. Yeah. All these young men are controlled. And I started to think about it the other day of like why young men are so, why they can't express their masculinity in a right way. Yeah. You know, you think about teachers, you think about schools suppressing, you know, kids and how outward they are. Yeah. And, you know, I was talking to one of our students today. I was asking her, she's a mother of 2. Yeah. I'm like, why is that? What happened? And you think about it, and these kids are being punished for doing what they used to do, chase girls, you know, go do these stupid things. And these kids are now scared to do that. And they're scared to express themselves. Yeah. But then it's
almost shamed for doing that normal thing.
It's allowed on boys to like, I really want to explain this right. Cause I want to understand this of like why this happens. The boys get told they can't chase the girls or they can't do the things that they used to do. Yeah. So then they do it to boys. And then they do all these sus things to the boys. And then I see a whole generation of just susness happening to this younger generation. And I'm just trying to understand like why that's happening and like how to solve that, how to get in the young man's mind to start, you know, shaping them up a little bit sooner.
Well, again, from a deeper level or spiritual level, imagine if you can take away the masculinity from a man, you can demasculate them, for lack of a better term. That is taking out a drive for growth, a drive for business, a drive for good, a drive for God, and that power to build, right? And anything the devil can't take away, he twists or perverts. Okay. So then how, knowing that spiritual law, and that's how it works in music, that's how it works in desires, that's how it works in many aspects of life, understanding that from a spiritual level. Now, how does that equate to say, okay, if I can't take away masculinity, how do I pervert it and twist it? How do I make that masculinity be turned toward anger? Mm-hmm. And so now somebody goes, well, look, I told you masculinity was bad. That guy's masculine and he's angry all the time. Well, that's not masculinity. That's anger, right? And so I think there is a shifting of terminologies, a shifting of definitions that damages the growth. And again, it comes back to damaging the family unit. Because what did God have in a perfect world? And obviously we live in a very imperfect world. The representation of the home and the family is a representation of God's love for us, of Christ, and us as King's kids. And so if you come from everything from that foundation, now it comes back to, okay, what's the actual thing happening here? And then on a surface level, yes, 1 in 4 homes are without a father. On a surface level, yes, that other things are being done, other things are being promoted on social media and online, and leading us to a controlled population. Now, like you said, the pendulum, I think, is swinging the opposite direction, which excites me and gives me hope for our generations in a big way. But what goes through your mind as I'm kind of brain dumping that thought process?
It it's a strong expression that I see here for young men and men in general. Me and Andrew, we see a lot of people of a lot of men of all ages that come to us for guidance on business, and we start to realize that, hey, a lot of the growth that you want in your business is caused by your personal insecurity and your lack of direction, your lack of blueprint.
Yeah.
And of course, for us, we go deeper into that and start solving those problems where they start to express themselves emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important piece where you have brotherhood to express, like, here's what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And the other person has the ability to listen and heal and say, what goes to your mind when you say that? Like, how does that feel? Right. And that is true brotherhood right there.
Well, and many people don't get to experience that feeling of brotherhood and that bond and growth that happens from that friendship and that brotherhood that's born. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think for each of us, we need what I call our soulmates, our people who we just don't need to have a filter with. We don't need to have a front with. We're just going, yo, like, this is what I'm going through, brother. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what's going on in my life. This is the mental thing that's going on in my mind right now. Like, just a brother who's got your back. And that is such a gift, a God-given gift in brotherhood.
By the way, when me and Andrew speak super clear and have such a structure to our words, it's because this happens 40 times in conversation.
Yeah.
And then we learn the topic and we get really good. We start to see evidence, and then we start to gain so much confidence behind the words. And that's where you'll see us on stage having such for those asking of our confidence in communication. But this is actually how it is. It's like deep thought discussion. Why? Thoughts.
And something important, what you just said, Leo. Guys, this is how ideation happens. Imagine you and your brothers. Imagine you and chosen or blood. Imagine you and your friends, you and your team, you and your spouse. And the communication happens in a way that, when you see us come out on stage with a very specific and confident idea, it's because we ideated it and we're deep in our strength about what we believe.
So we have here why this is happening, and I want to do like live research. But we have here the main problem is a lack of a blueprint, which is a lack of fatherhood. Most young men grow up without a grounded man to teach them the main masculine roles, right? No one taught them how to lead. No one taught them how to carry weight. So resilience became a second thought. It became a skill that was not learned by most young men or most men of today. They became very fragile, right? Words can hurt them. They're no longer a rock.
Yeah.
They're like a fragile paper that can get crumbled down. And we see that so often, right? Direct communication is one of the keys to growth. But if you can't directly communicate with a man in a proper way, where either they joke as soon as something becomes serious, where I've seen that so many times, or they hide away, shy away from the conversation, or their ego gets too big. So direct communication cannot happen. But if that's the key to growth for a man or for a society, really, that can happen for a lot of people right now.
Well, a lot of people, to be offended in today's society is their protection mechanism. Don't talk directly to me because I'm offended. Well, gosh, if I know my brother cares about my outcome, if I know that I'm having somebody who can speak directly to me and I can speak directly to them, that gives us a place. There's a safety, the Bible says, in a multitude of counselors. There's safety in having people who can say, brother, I'm noticing this thing. Like, did you realize you're doing this?
Hmm. So when I first started to understand this for myself, I was 18, 17, 18, around that time. And I had just been put in the position to start leading. And I realized that I was a good leader when I turned it on. I was able to fake being a good leader and pretend to be, a good decision maker in the moment. But outside of the role, when I was back home, when I was back by myself, I realized all the bad decisions I was making throughout the day. Right, very lustful thoughts, very negative ideas. I put other people down. I was very insecure myself. And it wasn't until that one day I had, I was in a relationship and I had dropped them off. And I remember basically that was like the last touch point, basically like breaking off there and driving home and just feeling so terrible about myself and feeling so empty. And it's like, okay, like a woman can do that to you, like make you feel so empty. I was like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. And I started to think about my choices, think about who I am. And I remember sitting down and I watched a couple videos about masculinity. And I was like, okay, good take. Right. And it was talking about something off topic about how you sit. Right. Don't sit a certain way. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I called my mom and I was like, am I too feminine? and I called my mom and I was like, what? And she was like, well,
leave it to mom, to be honest.
and she just gave me a couple of thoughts. And, she was just like, you never had a good role model, blah, 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 all these different things. And I got so pissed off. I was like, no way that I've been led down this route for so many 18 years. And I never got to learn how to truly be masculine, what that really meant. Because us as men, we have masculinity. It's in our nature to be leaders, to drive, to want, to create. And I just never understood how to fully control it, let it out, and balance it.
What was that shift for you? Because you mentioned, feeling that emptiness and having that chat with your mom.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, wait a minute, what path have I been led down? Like, what was that shift for you? What started to change? And what was the actions you started to take to be the man and the leader you are today?
I started to realize that it has a lot to do with your mind and your upbringing, how you view yourself, how you view women, how you view lust, how you view money, and all these different things. And I started to train myself because, honestly, for me, I just wanted to be a high value man.
Yeah.
So I can, in that time, make more money, have more girls, do all these things.
Yeah.
And that led me down a path for 2 years, which I'm glad I did it, but I went down like a full red pill path of like, screw it, full discipline, do all these things. And, luckily I have a good heart, so I didn't do any bad things, but it did show me the whole extreme side of masculinity, right? It showed me the game. It showed me the game of masculinity. It showed me how to tap into that.
What is masculinity to you?
Masculinity to me is the energy of drive. It's the energy of focus. It's the doer, right? It's the mentality that does. It's the mentality that you might think and you create. You create from what you think. Everyone has masculine energy, right? It's like the yin and yang. It's the energy that drives. However, in the context of us as a man, it has to do with how we view ourselves, how we view the world, the backbone that we have, right? Do you stand for anything?
Yeah.
Right. For example, naturally, we are built to protect, right? God made two genders and he made one stronger and bigger than the other one.
I heard that ain't famous in 2025.
It's not. And they made that one stronger. So you're built to protect.
Right.
Right. And you start to realize those roles and you start to gain this responsibility over protecting your family and protecting your future family. Right. For those of you who are younger, you understand that you're going to have kids, you're going to have a wife, you're going to have a business, you're going to have these things that you have to protect. Right. Because if it's not you, who's it gonna be? Like, yeah, oh, give it to your wife to protect you,
Right.
right? Somebody comes in and robs you. You hide behind the wife. The wife and the kids got it, right? Your job is to protect.
Yeah.
So it's that natural inclination of that's my job, that's my role, that's my responsibility to protect. So let me learn every day and improve every day so
Yeah.
that can be natural and true.
I think it's the greatest gift we can give as men is to be that leader, that protector, and that provider, and that person who those around us can count on. And that gets
Correct.
to show through in every aspect, in a different way in brotherhood, in a different way in business and leadership, in a different way at gatherings, events, all of these different places. But you can step into that power, and by stepping into that power, you can create an environment. It's something I notice you do a lot at the places we go, the events we host, the things we put together, is you make, because of your leadership ability, we are able to create safe spaces where people can come together and have communication, even about uncomfortable topics or topics that they don't see eye to eye on. And because of that leadership capability, it creates a space where everyone is heard and everyone realizes that it comes from a foundation of caring and wanting everyone to be lifted up. Nothing is destructive. Nothing is tearing down.
Well, that's what a good father does, right?
Yeah.
Is they create a safe space for the home so the children, so everyone can grow. As waves come about, you're the rock. You are the rock of the home. And creating safe spaces is such a great topic. And I want to
Yeah.
stay there for a little bit because I can create a safe space right now where it's like, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're safe, where I'm secure enough in myself where nothing you say I'm going to judge. Day one, I did that, right?
Yeah.
I told you day one, like, hey, I have nothing to judge. Like, here's all the things that, all the crap that I've been through.
Yeah.
And then you test it, right? You say something, it's like, hey, that is safe,
Yeah.
right? You create that safe space, and then that person starts to trust you, and then you get to create an incubator for that person to grow.
Yeah.
Right. And the trust is so much where, okay, you grew this much. I'm not going to hold it against you that, oh, I helped you get here.
Yeah.
Right. You're someone in my circle. I'm someone in your circle. Our job is to make other people grow. Our job is to build a tribe of people who are strong and who are mentally capable. And you can do that for the women in your life.
Yeah.
You could do that for the men in your life. You could do that for the children in your life. You could do that for so many people, and then everyone starts to grow, and then you've got a lot of great protection around you.
And I think that's a powerful illustration because everybody's listening has been through some sort of trauma, crap, challenges, right? Whatever the things may be that you've gone through in your life. We've gone through different things in our lives, and we share those things. And because it's safe, because it's a place where we constantly, as brothers, push each other to grow.
Yeah.
As on here, our objective is everybody listening to this podcast, to this stream, grows because of it, has another discussion, has another line of thought. And if we can create that, the world can become a place that is more fitting for the young people and the people coming up around us. But until that example is giving of a good place, I hear a lot. And growing up, I remember there was this movement of people who would constantly talk about what shouldn't be. Well, this is happening and it's bad. This is happening and it's wrong. And this is happening and it's not good. And my dad would let him go on for about so long about the negative things. And he'd say, well, why don't you talk about how to make it right? Yeah. And I think that's such a good perspective because as we talk about these things, yes, we notice the challenge, but the discussion is what's the things we can do to make that challenge right?
Wow. I heard one day, in order to be a man, you need two things. You need a spine and you need balls. And I didn't fully understand in the beginning, but having a spine is having a backbone. I didn't know where this was going.
I'm just listening.
Having a spine is having someone to stand for, right? You believe in the country, right? We love the country so much, right? We love our families so much. We know our business and we grow our business for the improvement of God's kingdom.
Yeah.
For our future families, for our brotherhood, for our current families, and then for the kingdom. We're very unapologetic about God.
Yeah.
Right? We're very unapologetic about the Bible. We're very unapologetic about who we are and who we're helping people become. That is a backbone.
Right.
That's something you stand for. That's something as a man, you provide people that type of growth. As a father, and of course, I don't have children. I am just future pacing in the way that I would be as a father as I think about it now, because we're pretty much fathers for our teams,
Yeah.
right? And for the people around us, because we follow that growth.
Our kids
in
are
them.
older than us.
Exactly. And the balls part is like the courage to just go, the courage to speak, even though it might be scary.
Right.
The courage to a big part is something I noticed with my mom is she's a very strong woman. So is my sister, very strong women, and men were scared to speak up.
Mm.
So they wouldn't, right? I saw a lot of different situations with women like my mom, my sister, where their boyfriends would not speak up. The husbands would not speak up. They would not take control. So who takes control? The wife or the girlfriend.
Mm.
And what happens is that man doesn't have a spine or balls. He doesn't speak up. He doesn't lead. He doesn't guide. He doesn't allow his natural masculine to come up. And how could you lead the kids in the right way? How could you protect? Because you're not the decision maker in that point. Because if you can't even speak to your wife or your woman in what you want to say, how could you lead? And that's happening across all of society right now, where men are afraid to speak in general. They're afraid to speak up about the country.
Yep.
They're afraid to speak up about politics. They're afraid to speak up about their beliefs, about anything. I was afraid for so long because I was around a bunch of liberals in San Francisco. I was born in San Francisco, raised in San Francisco. I was around all liberals, and I couldn't speak because I was scared that person would have backlash. I would be labeled as a bad person because I support the country.
Yeah. How crazy is that in the U.S.?
It's wild.
And something that I think is powerful for all of us, regardless of where your beliefs are on something, the fact that you can talk about it and talk about why you feel that way. And that's something that you're very good at, Leo, is always having a conversation of like, why is it this way? Not only how can we change it, but why do I have this perspective? Because so many times it's easy for people to, yell at each other about things that they maybe don't know a lot of things about, but they have a varying difference of opinion, but their opinion's based on who knows what, some other thing someone fed them about someone, whether this political person because the news said they should be, or this political person because that news outlet said they should be. And it's powerful when you can start to actually develop the opinions for yourself, develop your beliefs for yourself. That's something that I think as good men, we don't tell people what to think. We help and encourage and empower people of how to think.
Think for yourself.
Meaning think for yourself. How do we think? We go gather information. We find out, is it true? And why do I feel this way? What is happening and why is it happening? Whether it fits my narrative or not, I want to know the truth. I want to know the reality.
Let's answer this question from Aiden. I feel like judgment is necessary to growth from yourself and others. Wouldn't you agree? 1,000%. It is so necessary to have judgment. And the reason I think it's so important to have a backbone is because when you start to develop your beliefs and your values, you need to be able to have those values and beliefs be tested, and people to say other things like, hey, challenge those opinions. And with judgment, you need to be able to go back to yourself and confide in yourself. Hey, do I really believe in this, and where did this come
That's
from?
really good.
Because that's what confidence is. It's to confide, right? Confide in yourself, confidence. And men with true confidence, it's so attractive because you're able to speak your mind. And you would be the person that if it comes down to it, I've got your back. You've got my back, right? And you see that I'm able to speak my mind so clearly here, so I'm always going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Right? Back to the judgment idea. If we see a young man and he's doing something stupid, that is our fault if we don't share with that young man what we think, right? Of course, it's the father's job, but knowing myself, I didn't have a father that would tell me that, right? Because I wouldn't take it as a young kid because I wasn't followed the right way in the beginning. So knowing that, you need to judge people. Like, you need to tell people what you think, and I'm wanting to be challenged on this idea because anyone in my life, like I'll tell them right on, like that was really stupid,
Yeah.
or you look really stupid right now,
Yeah.
and
He
I'll
says
tell
that
them
to me
from
every
love,
morning. That's the motivation. He's
and I'll
like,
tell
"No,
them
I'm just
from love of like, what are you doing? And you show up. So it's one direct, right? To if they're doing something really stupid,
yeah.
hey, you're doing something really stupid. Here's why. But also giving them a pathway of like, here's what it looks like to maybe not do it stupid because it gained these results that you want, and you don't have the results that you say you want. But
Yeah.
if you do this, you could get that result.
So there's a big difference, and this is something I struggled with, and I like how you said that. I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective. That is, growing up, I was quite insecure. I had incredible parents, was very sheltered, grateful for that, but there was a lot of things I had to learn when I got into the world and the world of business and life. And something I did was I trusted everyone. So when anyone would say something to me, I would internalize it. Oh, dude, do I really look that bad? Like immediately I would internalize everything. So
Yeah.
no filter, right? And then I got to where I would just not internalize anything, which makes you uncoachable because it's like everybody's stupid, right? And so I had to find that balance to analyze where's it coming from and decide for myself. And so if Leo says like, bro, that kind of looks crazy, like, you know, maybe I'll change my hat because I know we're brothers. I know it's coming from a right intent. It's a desire to see a brother grow. This is the game changer for me. Now, if some stranger on the internet says, you know, that plant in the background looks stupid, I'm going to be like, I wish they could get a life, right? Because you know that it's just some random thing that's being thrown out by someone with who knows what kind of intent. So for me, it comes from me looking at myself saying, do I accept this information? Is this true? But also gauging where it's coming from. If it's coming from, there's a very few people who I allow to speak into my life at a high level, almost without filters. Meaning, if something comes from that person, I know that it was at least well intended. So I'm going to take it very sincerely and very seriously. And on the output side, when I'm looking at somebody, if it is a desire, and this is where we ask our own self for our own intentions, if I see someone, is my desire coming from a desire to see them grow? Because like with our mastermind, I'll frequently say things that would be considered harsh if somebody just walked up and heard the conversation, but it's because they have given us permission to say, hey, I know that you're seeing things from a different perspective. Please speak into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting there going, dude, I just had a conversation this morning with a couple of different mastermind members. And I said, look, here's the pitfalls you're about to run into. Here's what you need to change now. And I spoke that into their life because of a perspective of seeing them grow. So the judgment comes from pure intent.
That's really good. Thanks for the question, Aiden. If you guys have more questions, put it down there. We really want this to be an open discussion. We realize that it's, me and Andrew speaking here to each other and to you, but we love this type of engagement also. So something I want to bring up here, something that's been rolling through my mind is rites of passage. Right back in, I have no idea what year, 1960s, right? Certain years, people would go off to war. Boys would go off to war, and they would literally have a rites of passage to become a man.
Right.
They would be broken down into a man. And it's not to say that that's the perfect way to do it,
Right.
but there was still a rites of passage. Fraternities do it now, where you go through a frat, you go through a screening process, and you turn out in a process a better man. And it's brotherhood, right? Both of those are brotherhood, rites of passage and brotherhood. For myself, I had business, right? I had to go through a lot of crap in business to then be shaped into a man, and relationships, right? Those two. But right now, there's very limited rites of passage where men are so extremely comfortable where you can get McDonald's anywhere on a street corner. You can work a little bit and make a little bit just to get by, but to have dreams of like, one day I'm gonna get there, but never really do anything.
Yeah.
And then they stay in this perpetual state of anger at themselves and the world and women and everything but
Yeah.
fully taking initiative for themselves to say, okay, this is what's happening in the world. It's growing so fast. AI is growing at this capacity. People are growing at this capacity. How can I be 10 times better? And how can I find that drive in me to be 10 times better? Because, hey, I'm not going to change the world and make it slower. It's not going to slow down for you.
Yeah.
It will never slow down for you. In a million times anything, it will never slow down for you. So when you realize that, you're like, hey, only thing is to speed up.
Yeah.
Only thing I could do is get better. And in that process of improving and getting better, you find what it means to be a man. You find what it means to provide and to protect. You find what it means to have pure responsibility over your life and then for other lives, because they start to look at you as a mentor, a guide,
Yeah.
someone who has figured it out and has created a backbone and has created a set of values that you live by every single day. And that's what creates great men. And those men create other great men to then create other great men. And then you can start to see the pendulum shift. And that's why, red pill, which is essentially the extreme, right? There's, however they want to call it, beta, super soft, and then there's red pill, right? The problem is that people are so one dimensional or so black and white where it's either you're super soft or you're red pill. And then same thing with politics, same thing with everything. But it's just about finding a middle ground, right? And in the spectrum, you kind of want to be here a little bit. Traditional
Human beings
values,
are prone to extremes.
they sure are. And that's the problem. But if you can find the balance of like, okay, I know how red pill is, but here's the 26 principles of red pill that just don't align with me.
Yeah.
But here's the 42 that do. Okay, perfect. Now you're purple pill, whatever you want to call it.
And I think there was a movement that happened. If you start looking at history, from my understanding, you have World War II generation. You have, the generation who, incredible, strong men who raised the baby boomer generation, which is my dad's generation. You have that generation who raised a younger generation, Gen X or millennials. And every generation wanted their kids to have it better, which is any parent does, right? And so in that happening, people are going off to war, things are happening, growth is happening, and they're going, man, I want my kids to have it better. Baby boomers were encouraged to go to college, have an easier life, but work hard, do the things. Then my generation is where I got worried because a lot of my peers I noticed were being raised in a way that was so soft, so weak, being given everything on a silver platter, so to speak, and being raised in a way that allowed them to eat unhealthy, do nothing. We was raised on a farm. We'd go out working, and we was blown away by the kids who didn't ever leave the house, playing video games, eating unhealthy foods, addicted to pornography, all the things that were happening to my generation who were just becoming weak and pathetic. And as we're watching that happen, I'm going, oh my gosh, like, is this the destruction of society? And now coming back, the pendulum, I believe, a lot of now Gen Z is realizing the very negative things that begin to come into place from that pendulum swing. And I think that's a powerful thing as we look at this going, wait a second, what can I do to change that narrative? Because comfort breeds horrible things. And so the more comfortable our life has been, you had in some ways a very blessed, but some ways a very uncomfortable life. I had a very blessed, but in some ways very uncomfortable life. I was constantly pushed, get out, bale the hay, feed the chickens, do the things, snow, rain or shine. But the fact that as kids, we're doing different things, hard things, give us a foundation and a basis to be able to live and be the men we were meant to be.
Amen. That's beautiful. If young men nowadays can find some role models, or actually, let's put it on the current men.
Yeah.
If current men could improve themselves and start sharing out what's made them who they are, and these young men can start listening and start having some role models, and they can start saying, wow, okay, that is what true masculinity is. That, how beautiful would it be if these things started to become viral?
Yeah.
And people start to see the beauty of what it means to be a true man. And that's really what we're trying to do is create those ideas in men and people watching today. Start posting out content, start putting your ideas out, start putting your thoughts out there. And these young men who are coming up, they start listening to that, and they stop being so sus. They stop doing all these weird things and learn the education of how to express yourself, how to express your masculinity, how to express your energy out. And I'm excited to see that happen, but it's a lot of work from now. How do you view that happening? Like, how do you think this culture will shift to make that happen?
I wish I had the answers. I don't. I will tell you a perception I have. I think we are seeing it in some ways, and that is that it's so easy. I notice people get so upset about the role models that are out there sometimes, going, this person is red pill, this person done this person. I can't believe that our young men are looking up to these guys. And my answer is just always be the change you wish to see. And I think the more that as men, as leaders, Leo and Andrew sitting here talking, saying, how do we become better men and leaders for our communities?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can lay aside the negative things, all of the horrible things that we talk about, we talk about the True 8, if we can lay aside hatred and envy and anger and jealousy and all the bull crap that so many people take on that are bad in the world, and be the strong masculine leaders that we were meant and called to be, I believe there's an attraction that happens there. I want a brother who's strong, right? I want a brother who has my back and who I know I can trust, who's strong. I don't just mean like physically strong. I mean strong mentally. Someone who I know I can trust, someone who has my back, someone who I know I can keep up with, someone who I know can keep up with me. And when you start to develop brotherhoods like that, leadership and role models, and you start seeing people, you go, well, some is better than none. They're heading in the right direction. People are trying to do their own things. And as men, all of us have to take personal responsibility. That was one of the things that I grew up. I had lots of advantages. I'm blessed. I'm grateful. Incredible parents. But I also had disadvantages. We all have disadvantages we could look at.
That's right.
But every one of us have to take personal responsibility. And so I see men who live in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s complaining about crap of things that happened.
Everything but themselves.
Everything but themselves. This woman done this, and this happened, and this, and this, and this. And they live in that past, and they get old whining and complaining about the things they can't change, rather than saying, you know what? A bunch of crap happened. I wish it wasn't that way. All right, now I'm grateful that I'm here now.
Let me start reading. Let me start working out.
I'm going to do something to get better. I'm going to show some kindness. I'm going to open the door at the grocery store for the person behind me. I'm going to smile at the cashier and say thank you. I'm going to brighten someone's day who has a different view than I do. Yeah. I'm going to say thank you for your perspective when I want to say, how the heck do you believe something so stupid, right? Why do I say that? Because there's those thoughts that run through all of our minds sometimes as we get passionate about something we believe, but instead choose to show that kindness and be that leader and be the growth you want to see, rather than continuing to exacerbate a problem and making it worse. And I think that's a powerful shift, because truly strong men know when to speak and when to just be strong. And sometimes that's through saying nothing. And other times it's through speaking up. And I think there's been a generation who didn't speak up, or who spoke up in an ineffective way. And the more we can speak up at the appropriate times, but in an effective way. Someone I've noticed, love him or hate him, and I think it's very intriguing what he's done, is Charlie Kirk has come out the gate making a massive influence among a young generation by having meaningful discussions of people who have much different views than he does. Yes. I don't agree with Charlie on everything. I think he's got some good things to say. And I love his discussion. I love the way he talks through things. And I think that's a powerful illustration of speaking up and in a very productive way.
Wow. This is a great topic.
This is good, man. Thank you for bringing it up and having the guts to talk about it on the show today, man.
There's some moms on here, and Teresa has asked, how do moms help their sons when there's not a male role model to help them be real men? Is there an age when it's too late to try to do anything about it? So I'm gonna give the perspective from my mom and how she was able to guide me in a pathway that has allowed me to be my own man, right? To basically become my own father, become my own role model. And of course, I had slight role models throughout my time that have been able to give me that pathway. And Andrew, of course, creating a space for that in business and in brotherhood to be able to do that. But something my mom always did was she always challenged me, right? She always challenged me. Anything ungentlemanlike, she would slap me, not in the face, but she would slap me and say, "Don't do that." Right? If I was shaking my leg, don't do that. If I pointed out of the video, don't do, when I was growing up, she would do, honestly, even now sometimes, she would just say like, hey, remember, right? And I'll just smile at mom because me and mom are good friends. But in the beginning, she always challenged me with this idea that if you want to be someone who can attract that person that you want, for example, you're gonna have to change. Or hey, when you're all by yourself, you're all alone. You're gonna be screwed. I was like 14, right? I started to learn this stuff at 14 because I was like, oh, I got to make my own money. So I started making my own money. But what she did was she was able to be a challenger, and I hated it. But every time she told me, I said, okay, I understand where the heart comes from, so I'm going to work on it in silence, right? And I never liked working at it right in front.
But it was my idea.
It was my idea. So she challenged me always, and I took that, and I grew from it. I grew from it every single day, and now I thank my mom so much every single day for helping me become the man I am.
Yeah.
Right? Because she wasn't necessarily so much of a traditional mother. She had to run both sides. And some of the good parts is she would force me to grow. And if there's an age that it's too late, I don't know. I think it really just after 18, it depends on the kid at that point to find his own way. What do you think?
Well, I think there's an age definitely of personal responsibility. So, older is more difficult. The most formative years of a kid's life is 0 to 6 years old, they say. That's crazy. 0 to 6 is when they're getting programmed with a lot of programs that will run with them the rest of their life until and if they decide to make a change. So I wouldn't say there's an age to be too old. I would say, if kids are in their upper teens or past 18 and they're getting into their 20s, then there's absolutely something to be said for, well, it's time to take personal responsibility. But here's a very good point that I think is going to be very enjoyable to you. And that is, my mom is an incredible woman.
Just happy birthday to your mom.
Happy birthday, Mama, if you're listening.
Mama Schlag.
73 years old today.
Crazy.
So
young as ever.
That's right. So Mom is an incredible example of a mom who loves her kids, who loves her husband. They've been married for 53 years. 53 years. Oh, my gosh. So I look at that, and Mom has such incredible impact. My dad often says, she who rocks the cradle rules the world, meaning the way that a mom speaks into their son's life, or in this discussion, of course, their kid's life, but in their son's life will always be with them. Secondly, though, and this is really important, if I don't know how old your kids are, but my dad would always tell people, I'd hear him advise people when he was advising parents with kids and, younger kids, teen kids, he would say, get them around the people you want them to look up to, because there will be a time where your parents aren't cool. And I thought that was such powerful advice, because I would see sometimes parents who, they want, as parents, you want to direct your kids in the right direction. And that was something I watched my parents do well, which was direct us, but realize when we got to that point where parents wasn't as cool, they would ensure that we was in rooms where there was people who they believed were the best that they could find for us to look up to. And I always appreciated that. And I think that's a powerful, powerful thing, and something, we talk about, one day when we have wives and kids and all the things, It's single wife each, by the way. One day when we have wives and kids and all the things, the fact that I'm grateful we're building such an incredible community of people, of those role models that we'll want our kids looking up to. And I think that's a powerful thing. But I trust that gives you some peace in the decisions that you're making, my friend.
In other words, you can bring your kid to a Truca event and we will slap him straight.
That's exactly right. For the low price of $99,997, we never mind.
Let's do another one from this perspective. Les says, love this topic. I get this question a lot from girlfriends and would love male perspective. How can women encourage men to step into their masculinity without being controlling?
I have told some of my friends, my friends who are girls, I'm about to say my girlfriends, some of my friends who are girls. I've told
All
some of
seven of them.
my great friends, if you treat a good man and a leader like you would have to treat an abusive or controlling person in order to be safe, you would lose the good man. But if you treat an abusive or controlling person like you would treat a good man to empower him, that abusive and controlling person would take advantage of you. And I say it that way because it comes to, in my perspective, when I see a great woman with a great man who has an incredible heart, she can never over-empower him because he's always going to make decisions with his wife, his girl, in mind. I want my girl to be taken care of. I love, if you're on here, I love my girlfriend, and I always make decisions thinking of her and knowing that there is that trust there and that she constantly is in her femininity and encouraging me to be in my masculinity. That is a perfect yin and yang. But on the other hand, especially when girls, and I've met girls who have come from abusive relationships or back to fatherless homes, which is a big thing, who struggle with that, and then they wind up with a controlling, dominating man who doesn't give a crap about them, and all that man, if you call him that, all that male person wants to do is be in control and dominate, and there's no care there. That becomes evil. That's not masculinity. That's control, and that's evil. And so whenever you start to find that man with that incredible heart, when you know that man has that incredible heart, then my perspective is there's never an overabundance that can be pushed, just like that man can never over love his woman, right? He can never over love his woman because if she has an incredible heart, she just lifts him up, he lifts her up, and it's a beautiful harmony. And I say that from the perspective of a son who has parents who's been that way the last 53 years, or at least the 32 of them I've been around, and they constantly lift each other up. There's zero tension there. And then I say that, of course, from being in a loving relationship with my girlfriend, knowing that as a man and a leader, you want to feel empowered to continue to bless and lift up your girl.
Oh, I've been listening and thinking here of the perspective, looking at my parents, right, and seeing so many divorces, like being in the midst of so many divorces, of how it could have been mitigated. And it's tough when the woman starts to resent the man and his lack of masculinity.
Yeah.
And I've seen it so many times where the man becomes a little bit lazy, or the man loses a little bit of purpose, or maybe he's going through a worldly, lustly nature, and she starts to mistrust or resent or get, women hate when a man loses his core, right? And then doesn't have a backbone and is scared. Like it's like I've seen it so many times, so I've gotten to feel that as well. Like, whoa, like, what is that? What is going on? And I think sometimes of like, okay, what if my mom was just more feminine and guided his masculinity, right? And I'm just like, I don't think he would have. I mean, because he was broken dude. I don't think he would have took it. But maybe, right? Maybe it could have been inspired, like finding parts of the man to pull out the gold in him, pull out those things. I think it just depends, right? And I think it's tough. And that's why brotherhood is so important, because you throw it to the brothers, right? You
Right.
throw it to the guys. They'll fix them up. You got to get them around other men who will fix them straight.
I think there is a power, and I'll give you a Papa Slag quote, Les. You'll enjoy this. Dad always says, "Takes three to make a marriage. Takes a woman, takes a man, and takes God." So there's my Papa Slag quote of the day. But it's what, to Leo's point, such a powerful thing in brotherhood, because now a man who's a strong leader wants to always be respected by his girl, by his wife, by the woman in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, he needs, I think all of us sometimes need that guidance of like, bro, what the heck are you thinking? Like, what was that about? And I think that brotherhood is vital. Guys, if you do one gift, one thing for yourself and your beautiful family, find a brotherhood of someone, at least a couple of guys, at least someone who can be a brother, who can speak to you without filters, and you them, and there's a love and a bond there that is powerful. Because if you have that, that will save so many traps that come your way.
But then once you find that and you start to build a backbone, build great values, and become disciplined, I think it's a beautiful thing, having a relationship with God at the center, because you always go back to the Word, you always go back to the Bible, you always pray together.
Yeah.
Right? There's statistics that relationships that pray together are 90-something% more likely to stay together, and it's beautiful. And I think there's a lot that could be done at that point, maybe a lot before, but at the point of having God at the center, what you can do as a feminine woman is to learn that radiance, learn the ability of nurturing, right? Because you want to do it for the man who is in his masculine, who is providing, who is leading, who loves you so much and does not hide that love, right? Does not conceal that love. The love is so open. And you can learn to mesh together really well in bringing out your femininity. And what that does is it inspires the man to lead, right? When you're soft, when you're expressive, it inspires the man to say, I want to protect, I want to build, I want to do everything for you.
Yeah.
And it's an instinctual thing that we have, and to multiply, right? And we see that, we're like, let's make a bunch of little Leos, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to do that because the energy is there, but let's just say
it's gonna be so much energy when there's a bunch of little Leos.
As some people, right, some women might turn it off, or they might be so much in their masculine.
Yeah.
Now it's like, whoa, where did that go? Right? Because I can't bring it back up, But the energy also exists in alcohol, and the energy exists on pornography, and the energy exists in other worldly things. And that's already something that men struggle with every single day.
Yeah.
But if the woman that you're with, and let's just say you're married to that woman, and you're committed, and she is in her full masculine, and she's not coming out of it, and even as you guide it, it's not coming out, it's like, what are you going to do? Us as men, we need that nurture. We need that type of energy. And if you take it away from him, it's like, hey, what do you want the guy to do? So something less in your question you do really well is you bring out that femininity, and you learn that, and you continually study, and we study together. And it's so important that you have that type of relationship where you go to the Bible, you read it, you guide each other, so both of you are on the same page that, hey, I'm bringing out my masculine, I'm leading, and it's okay for me to do that. And for her, it's okay that she's feminine.
Yeah.
And your job is to be the rock for her.
I think that comes back to the foundation. What is this home being built on? What's in this, romantic relationship discussion, like, what's this relationship being built on? Of course, I view that in friendships and brotherhood and business and all aspects, but what is this being built on? And that's what you're talking to, is coming back to the Bible, coming back to a foundation, coming back to a compass to say, all right, this is our map. every time we start to feel off track, this is what we come back to. How can we serve each other and ultimately serve God? Because either side getting out of whack, so to speak, as we used to say in the country, either side getting out of whack starts to throw the whole thing off.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we come back into that ultimate submission to God? How do we come into ultimate surrender to God, but also continue to come together and solve the differences?
So at the end of the day, it is still your job as a man to develop yourself so much,
Yeah.
to develop such a backbone and values. Start reading, start working out, learn how to fight, learn how to develop, learn all those things. And what happens as a culmination of that is you develop traits of masculinity, and you start to love that masculinity because, wow, I feel so strong.
Yeah.
But it's strength and being able to hold a baby and kill a man the same day.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want to, it's not about going and killing a man. But if someone comes through our door, he's scout.
done.
He's done.
He's done.
He's and you know that, and you have that type of energy towards it. And every time I talk about it, it's like you have that ability to destroy and to nurture in the same time. And it's being able to control that makes someone feel so safe. If anyone is in our home, we're at a dinner party, right? If anyone's in our home or we have a gathering, they are so safe because we are the first ones who are going to go and protect everyone else.
Yeah.
And we're smart enough to understand the dynamics of the home and dynamics of things, and having weapons, having things to protect. It's a beautiful thing of what masculinity is. And for those of you guys who are listening later or now, learn to love the balance between the two. Learn to love the masculinity that you have, but also understand everyone has masculine energy. Everybody has feminine energy too, which is a whole nother topic that I don't know if we have time to dive into. But when you find the balance of those two, the yin and yang, as Les just said, it's like, wow, you get to really create a great combination of how you are. Maybe 80% masculine, 20% feminine.
God made it perfect for a reason.
Absolutely.
That's
this is a really fun topic, and I think there's a lot more that will come out of this. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for giving us this platform to be able to speak candidly about whatever goes to our mind.
Yeah.
I think it's fun that we are so unapologetic with our thoughts, and I think that is something that we would teach everybody.
Yeah.
It's like
want everybody to have that.
Be strong with your words, know also the repercussions of your words, and then be unapologetic with it.
Yeah, speaking of, share this out to a friend who needs it. If you have a complaint, email Leo at never mind.
Exactly. We're all in for it. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're still very young, older minded because of Papa Schlag. You got your pop and a lot of mentors that have taught us well, but we like to be challenged. We like to learn fast. We like to be wrong sometimes because guess what? We're going to find out if we're right, and then we'll be right.
And my prayer would be this is just a place where, as we're discussing, you're going to see our growth in coming months and years as we have families and all of these things start to come together. You're going to see this growth. And my prayer would be that it would just be an inspiration for every one of you to share that communication with someone, to share that gift. If you're a man, to share that gift of leadership with someone. If you're a woman, to share that beauty of being the woman you were meant to be. And it's just such a powerful gift that all of us have. And my prayer is, again, that you're just fully able to step into that. And thank you guys again for being here.
Thank you, Andrew, for your life and your work and doing all the things you do. It's provided a great grounds for learning for a lot of people.
Thank you, brother.
Let's
Appreciate
go.
You too, man.
You guys have a great, fantastic day. We're going to be back Monday, same time, same place. And we've got a lot of really fun stuff for you guys.
See you Monday, guys. Have a blessed weekend.
Deuces. Bye-bye.